Hi everyone and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I'm going to be discussing the astrology of September 2025 and what it means for your zodiac sign. This is eclipse season. It's one of the most exciting seasons of 2025. We have a total lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th of September, and we also have a partial solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st of September, meaning that September is bringing in new beginnings and it's closing out old chapters as well. So it is quite a significant month for all of us. But if you are a Pisces or a Virgo sun, moon, or rising, this month is extra special for you, that we will all be feeling significant change in the Pisces and Virgo parts of our chart. So if you do want to book a reading with me, the information is listed in the description box below for all my astrology services. All my socials are linked down there as well. I post more frequently on Instagram. If you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you like it. And please do subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content from me. Right off the bat, September 1st, Saturn retrograde re-enters Pisces. And I can feel the Pisces basements go, ah, thought we were done with this. Not quite. Saturn is going to re-enter Pisces and be retrograde until November. So Saturn is covering old ground here. And in the sign of Pisces, this means that at least collectively, we can be covering old ground when it comes to the ocean, when it comes to the water supply, cleanliness of water. Saturn can bring about regulations, which can be very important when it comes to water safety, drinking water, the oceans, regulations surrounding those different types of things. That can be something that we see come up in September, particularly as we do have a total lunar eclipse. So taking care of the water supplies, water companies, those are types of conversations and things we can see come up in the news. And for all of us in terms of our internal worlds, because Pisces rules our inner world, it's our subconscious, it's dream state, it's the astral, you could find that in September your dreams are really kind of crazy and kind of wild. But because it's re-entering, Saturn is re-entering Pisces and covering old ground, a lot of the time with Saturn retrograde, when it comes back to where it's been, this is where we get the reward for the hard work. This is where we get the reward for the limitations that we put on ourselves, the boundaries that we've had with ourselves, the boundaries that we've had for others, the work that we've done. And in the sign of Pisces, this can be work that we've done internally and privately. So where you've been working on healing patterns, where you've been working on getting better sleep, better mental health, working through addictions or self-sabotaging behaviors, and really sort of cleaning up yourself spiritually with Pisces energy. So a lot of the inner work that you've done privately, this is where you can really start to see the results. Because we have a partial solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st of September, the equinox, the autumn equinox, if you are in the northern hemisphere, and equinoxes are about balance, especially this one as we're entering Libra season, but we have this solar eclipse in Virgo first and foremost, and it's at the final degree of Virgo. We had a new moon in August on the 23rd at 0 degrees of Virgo. This new moon partial solar eclipse is happening at 29 degrees of Virgo. So those are just the technical points of the astrology. The meaning of this is that Virgo is the sign surrounding our health. It is associated with our health, our well-being, our wellness routines, our diets, how we exercise, how we take care of ourselves, and the systems also that take care of our health as well. So collectively, maybe in a world perspective, a world view, there can be changes surrounding healthcare systems. You could look at organizations like the NHS, for example, maybe being a little bit more at the forefront, and there could be significant changes there over the next 6 months. Because we have this new moon, because we had this new moon in August, and then we have this new moon in September, at the first and final degrees of a sign, this means when it comes to healthcare, there can be something new coming in and something old wrapping up. So just because there is the eclipse in September, it doesn't mean that these changes happen smack bang in the middle of September. They can, but eclipse changes can roll out over the next 6 months. So we can see changes to healthcare systems, how we practice healthcare. There can be changes in there can be shifting societal expectations and perspectives surrounding healthcare. You might notice more people, for example, are leaning into the idea that your emotions and your physical body are very much connected. When you hear certain expressions like, say someone has a sore stomach and you ask them, what is it in your life that you can't stomach right now? And I know that that almost sounds a little bit funny, but those expressions come for a reason. Finding it hard to digest, for example, digestive issues. There can be something in your life you're finding hard to digest, headaches, something that is weighing heavy on your mind, shoulders being linked to stress and the burdens that you're carrying, things like that. So, sort of noticing these correspondences between your emotions and your health can be a little bit more commonplace. Something that maybe 10 years ago, a lot more people would have said that is nonsense. More and more people with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo are leaning into a more spiritual experience when it comes to their health, understanding their emotions and their mental health and how that connects to the physical body. Because when we have opposite signs, Pisces and Virgo, very much at the forefront, as we do in eclipse season, this means that you mustn't neglect one over the other. So, with Virgo being the practical steps that we take with our health, exercising, how that positively impacts our emotions and our mood, how we eat impacting our emotions and our mood, but then also how our mood and our feelings are impacting our physical body. It's about connecting the two, very much leaning into working with your body physically and also working with your body somatically, emotionally, for example, in September can be very much to the fore. And you might notice with the total lunar eclipse in Pisces that feelings and emotions that were potentially suppressed or sort of pushed down into your subconscious mind, those things can come up to the fore with a total lunar eclipse in Pisces. That's happening on the 7th of September. If you've ever been for a walk on the beach after a storm and you see all this debris, all this stuff, sometimes it's a little bit peculiar, washed up on the beach, that's been there at the bottom of the sea, that's been there at the bottom of the ocean. And that storm comes up and moves it out. And it was always there, you just didn't see it. But once it's out, you see it for what it is. And a Pisces lunar eclipse is a little bit like that. So that can manifest as emotional outbursts, emotional realizations with a therapist or just through a conversation. That can also be that perhaps you're having very unusual and vivid dreams. With a lunar eclipse in Pisces, these dreams can be quite psychic, but they can also be showing you what's in your subconscious. And sometimes that's quite scary. So if you have a scary dream, don't assume that it is a premonition. It may very well just be your subconscious showing you what you're scared of and how that's maybe impacting you physically. Say you're very worried about something in your life, but you're trying not to look at it. It can come up in a dream, and that can make you very aware of where you're actually at. And if you're maybe experiencing, a lot of muscle tension because of it, this eclipse might make you aware of how your emotions are impacting you, your fears, or whatever it is that you're suppressing is actually impacting you physically, for example. So a total lunar eclipse in Pisces dreams can be really weird. They can be really wacky. You can have, you know, astral visitations. You can dream of someone and then they can message you the next day. You could actually just be thinking of someone and it turns out they're thinking of you at the same time and you message. I have that with a friend a lot. I'll think of her and then all of a sudden she'll message me or vice versa, or she'll appear in a dream and I'll wake up and there's a message. It's that kind of thing with people. If you have Pisces placements, that's kind of more normalized for you, but it may be that if you don't, you find all of this kind of weird and peculiar. But it can certainly be a time to lean into your intuition. More people might be interested in tarot cards and psychic readings and that type of thing under lunar eclipse in Pisces. The thing that I really love about this lunar eclipse in Pisces is that it is ruled by Jupiter. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter in traditional astrology. It's ruled by Neptune in modern. So we look at both. But with the Pisces eclipse being ruled by an exalted Jupiter in Cancer, this can really be a wonderful time to forgive, particularly events linked to the past. And it can be a very healing time for families. It can be a very healing time for ancestry, ancestral patterns, that type of thing can occur around the Pisces eclipse. It's a great time to forgive somebody. And I know that, every situation is different, and I wouldn't take that away from you if you feel like that's something that you can't do. I'm a Scorpio stellium. I'm not going to judge someone who's not naturally forgiving. But it can be about forgiving for yourself. Just be finally finding closure under a Pisces lunar eclipse from something in the past. Jupiter's in Cancer, that's very much linked to the past. Healing the past for the sake of your own prosperity and your own abundance and your own expansion. But I think with a Pisces lunar eclipse, forgiveness of maybe the self, or maybe forgiveness of your past, or forgiveness of your experiences, or whomever, or whatever it may be, you might find that this is the time when you're finally able to release something and let something go. Pisces is the sign associated with the 12th house in astrology, and that's about endings and release. So this lunar eclipse, so much of it contextually is leading to release and a catharsis of big feelings, of past feelings, of a release of patterns, or release of resentments, whatever the case may be for you. You may find under this Pisces lunar eclipse that you're releasing something. And it feels with Jupiter being in Cancer that it's for the better. You know, it's for the process of manifesting greater and better things. And with these eclipses, you may notice some things ending and some things beginning. And when things happen in an eclipse season, so throughout most of September, if not all of it, you may really feel as though there are destined people entering your path or things are wrapping up with certain people. And I will say this also, it is about destiny and it is about fate. And that doesn't always feel so pleasant. You know, sometimes things happen during an eclipse season that are not pleasant and we don't like and we don't understand the reason behind it. And it can take us days, months, weeks, years, sometimes never to really understand why certain things had to happen or certain people had to exit the picture. I often find in eclipse season, if someone does leave your life, it tends to be final. It tends to be for a very significant reason, and you may not always understand why until much later. If something ends, it's because it was meant to end. Again, you may not always understand exactly why that was. And I know that it sounds very easy for me to say that as an astrologer, you know, this was meant to happen, but first-hand experience, I know that it's not always great. I know that it's not always pleasant. So eclipse season is sort of, I think more so with this one with Pisces energy, it's about going with the flow and sort of allowing these feelings to come up, not suppressing these feelings, not ignoring them, but also being open to developing new routines and new healthy ways of coping with these changes and these experiences. And eclipses can also be wonderful. You know, one person's eclipse, and if you do know your chart, always look at your outer transits. So that can be transits you're receiving from Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto to your own personal chart because these matter just as much during an eclipse season to know how an eclipse is going to work for you. And if you're experiencing a bunch of challenging transits and the eclipse is challenging, it may not be your favorite eclipse in this lifetime. If you're experiencing a bunch of harmonious transits, this could be a wonderful life-changing experience for you. Eclipses are not the same for everybody, and they're also not the same in their extremity. So you may be a main character or you may be a supporting cast member during an eclipse season. You could be experiencing big turning points in your own life, big changes in your own life, or you could be witnessing them with people around you. They're not all built the same. Other things that are happening this month, Uranus is going retrograde on the 6th of September. Pay attention to this day because when Uranus shifts, things can be kind of wild and unusual. When Uranus goes retrograde, and usually not so much. But with Uranus going retrograde in Gemini, this is a time to reflect, especially in the Gemini parts of our chart, where there have been unpredictable changes, maybe a greater need for authenticity. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but what Uranian authenticity is where you feel called to live a certain way or express yourself a certain way, you know, providing it's not harming anybody, that other people just find a little bit weird, something that's a little bit unusual. So for example, say you're a Sagittarius rising and you've Uranus going through your seventh house at the moment. This may be where you're in a relationship, but you feel your relationship works better when you both live in separate properties. And some people might hear that and think, red flag, that's weird, that's unusual, that doesn't make any sense. But for you guys, it works. That's Uranus energy. Say you are an astrologer. You know, we always have Uranus somewhere quite prominent in our chart, and a lot of people might think, why that doesn't make any sense. You don't actually believe in that, do you? That's weird. But that's who we are. And that's what Uranian energy is. So look at the Gemini part of your chart. If you've maybe been leaning into something that's a little bit different or a little bit alternative, you're reflecting with Uranus retrograde and how that's going for you or what those changes could be, what you could change, what you could revolutionize, and where you could lean into something a little bit different. Uranus retrograde brings that energy inward where you're going through these inner revolutions and working through how you feel about doing things differently or how you feel about the changes that are happening to you since Uranus has gone retrograde in Gemini. For us collectively, reflecting on the changes and the technological advancements that are happening with Gemini, particularly surrounding journalism, media, communication, cars, even transport, and sort of reflecting on these different themes and how our own personal relationships are with these different types of technologies. You know, with Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius, technological advancements are quite rapid. And the retrograde energy is a chance to reflect on how we're feeling about that. Or air signs, how we're thinking about that and how we're integrating that information into our own lives or not. Obviously, with it being Virgo season, we do have to look at Mercury this month. And on the 13th of September, there is a superior conjunction between the Sun and Mercury in Virgo. So that's an important day for news. You might find an important conversation coming up in your life that day, important messages coming through, important information coming through. That's a great day to communicate. That's a great day to talk about something, especially in a work setting. You know, we had Mercury retrograde for a lot of the summer, which was not the time to get things moving, not the time to get things done. But you may find with this conjunction that if you want to schedule a meeting, you want to have a conversation, this is a pretty good time to do it because it's productive and it's organized. It's a superior conjunction for a reason. So if you are looking to schedule a conversation or you're just waiting for some important news, that could be the day. Another thing that I personally love about September as a Mars in Scorpio person myself, Mars is entering Scorpio on the 22nd, and Mars is domicile in Scorpio, meaning that there is a very productive function going on here. So when it comes to our actions, when it comes to our motivations, I would suggest with Mars in Scorpio, move in silence, move privately. Keep your intentions or your motivations a little bit more private. You don't have to share them with everybody. Mars in Scorpio functions better when you keep some things to yourself. And it's not about being deceptive. That's the more, that's the darker side. It's not about being manipulative. It's just about knowing when to share. Oftentimes, if we share plans or intentions or ideas too soon, they lose momentum. So bear in mind with Mars going through Scorpio that if you want to function at optimal level when it comes to your actions and your motivations, keeping things a little bit more private will work out better for you. It's a little bit more energetic as well. Mars going through Scorpio, it's more passionate than it was when Mars was in Libra. So just bear that in mind if you're looking for a bit of an energy boost, especially if you're a Scorpio or an Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising. This may be a time when you notice that boost come in, that energy come in, and you feel a little bit more like you can do the thing. And Mars going through Scorpio is also where we can face a fear in order to empower ourselves into making those changes that we desperately need to make. You know, in the midst of eclipse season, there may be quite a lot going on and a lot shifting and a lot changing, and this one can feel quite empowering. I will also say with eclipse season, when we talk about eclipse season and it being so fated and it being so destined and whatnot. And I know that those words are quite romanticized, but obviously, as I said before, some fated events and occurrences are not so pleasant. But I will say when it comes to taking affirmative action and making things happen and making big changes, it's more so about responding rather than reacting and initiating as well. So it's more so where you'll always experience an eclipse season that something comes to your attention that maybe you didn't expect. So say somebody comes to you with a proposition for a new job, or say you meet someone and you really feel like this is going to be a significant partner or a significant friend. Chances are you're right. That's about responding to something that's coming into your life. That's not about being determined to just make, it's not about just suddenly deciding to quit your job because you're frustrated. The universe working with you during eclipse season is somebody coming to you and saying, here, there's this opportunity that is here, and I think you'd be a great fit for it while you're in the midst of a bit of a crisis in your own job. That's very different to just suddenly quitting and walking out of a job. You can do those type of things during eclipse season, but just be mindful that sometimes it can cause more chaos. So I would say just with this particular eclipse season, be a little bit more tuned into your, again, Pisces feelings, but also conscious of your routines with Virgo, and be a little bit more receptive to what is coming towards you and respond rather than react, if that makes sense. Knowing what to do and when is an intuitive thing. But obviously, again, it is somewhat based in practicality most of the time. That's the blending of the two. But you'll know, you'll have a strong intuitive hunch of whether or not something is right for you. We're not faced with any of the inner planets in retrograde during this season, so it feels like there's a little bit less of a hesitation with the changes that are coming and going as opposed to the eclipse season we had in March, where there's a lot of retrograde energy with Mercury and Venus. And, we were in the post shadow of Mars retrograde. So this eclipse season feels a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more forward momentum, and a little bit more of an obvious divine redirect for a lot of people. But that is what I have as the astrology for September. As I say, timestamps are listed below. I am going to go face plant my pillow because I feel like I have no energy. But I hope you all have a really wonderful September. I really hope the eclipses are good to you and that you feel like the changes that are occurring are positive and they're welcome. And just know if the eclipses are not going the way that you would have liked them to and there are changes that you are not enjoying, I understand, have been there myself, may be there again at one point, and you've got this. You will come through this. Just keep swimming. It's a lunar eclipse in Pisces feeling. Just keep swimming. But wishing you all the best, and I will talk to you soon. Horoscopes are listed below. Bye.
Hi Aries, welcome to your September horoscope. Hope you're doing really well. So Aries, eclipse month. We have a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and that is your 12th house of the hidden, of the subconscious, of your inner world, of healing, of introspection. And we also have Saturn retrograde re-entering that sector on the 1st. Saturn re-enters Pisces on the 1st of September. So this month we see quite a lot of activity happening in your 12th house. Now the 12th house is an interesting one because it is the house of endings. So oftentimes when we have an eclipse in the 12th house or we have Saturn going through the 12th house, it's about wrapping things up. There may be something that you need to wrap up in your life, Aries, and this may be the month that you do it. Now, Saturn rules your 10th house, so this can be work that you're doing behind the scenes professionally, maybe something you've been working on privately, maybe something that you've been doing for your job, for your career, or a goal that you've been working on that maybe you've kept secret, or maybe you've just done a lot of work behind the scenes, and you could actually find that you're reaping the rewards of this. And this month with this lunar eclipse, you could feel like you're wrapping it up successfully. That lunar eclipse is going to be ruled by an exalted Jupiter, meaning that what you're wrapping up has some sort of success to it. It may turn out well or better than expected. Jupiter is in your 4th house though. So for some of you, this could be wrapping up the sale of a house. This could be wrapping up time spent in a certain dwelling. This could be wrapping up something with your family successfully. For a lot of you, this could actually be that you're wrapping up a cycle of healing pertaining to something that happened in your family, maybe a loss in your family. And I'm not saying that as if grief ever goes away, but you may notice that you've done a lot of significant healing pertaining to a loss, or you might notice that you've been healing a family wound, an ancestral pattern, and you really feel like you're letting it go. Sometimes with a lunar eclipse in the 12th house, this can bring up a lot of emotions that you didn't realize you were still holding on to. Emotions that are maybe stored in the body, emotions that you've suppressed. A lunar eclipse in the 12th house brings that stuff to the surface. So you could actually find Aries that even if you're not naturally someone who is in touch with their feelings, or you don't regard yourself as an emotional person, you could be having some cathartic emotional release. And this can also be that perhaps you notice that feelings about the past come up in order to be released. You could notice that you are having dreams that are very vivid, dreams about the past, maybe even for some of you, dreams about the future. Some of you could dream about a home that you purchase in the future. Some of you could dream about a family that you have in the future. Some of you could have a dream about something happening within your family in the future. And it's a tricky one to navigate, Pisces energy, because of course it can be prophetic, it can be psychic, but it can also just simply be subconscious fears. So if you have a disturbing dream or an upsetting dream, don't assume that it's going to be a future prediction. Just maybe look at it objectively and see if it's something that you're worried about or scared about that maybe you need to discuss. There can also be family secrets maybe coming to the fore with that lunar eclipse in Pisces as well. But look back to the new moon, 27th of February this year. Were you beginning something at that point? Was there a significant chapter coming up for you around that time, Aries, that is pertaining to this lunar eclipse? Eclipses bring change. It's important to stay fluid with a Pisces lunar eclipse and flow with the feelings. Don't resist them, because if there are feelings coming up, Aries, they may be very necessary to let go of so that you can begin a new chapter. With the solar eclipse, which is a partial solar eclipse, this eclipse is going to be one for you that ushers in a new beginning when it comes to your health, when it comes to your work as well. This, for some of you, could be a significant new chapter when it comes to your working relationship, because, this eclipse is going to be in your 6th house of work, but the dispositor Mercury is in your relationship sector. So some of you could have a new business relationship, or you could be beginning a new chapter within an existing relationship where you both work on your health, or you both work on your routines, or you are doing a job together. Or if you have a business relationship, this could be a new chapter coming in that's very important to you. Some of you could be hiring a personal trainer, a doctor, a nutritionalist, beginning a course of treatment that requires you to work very closely with someone else. So maybe you're wanting to get fitter, and so you bring in a personal trainer, and that's Mercury in your partnership sector. Mercury is very significant for this eclipse because, as I say, it's a Virgo eclipse. So you could be working more closely with one-on-one with a person in your life, Aries. You could be bringing in new systems, new routines for yourself, new schedules for yourself, and these routines and schedules are really going to take shape quite significantly over the next 6 months. So changes that you make to your day-to-day routine, your habits, they're going to lead to something greater, something bigger in the spring. A similar eclipse happened in September 2006, if you can remember that time period in your life. What was going on for you there when it comes to work and when it comes to health. Now, one thing I really like for you, Aries, is that your ruling planet Mars is going to be going into Scorpio, where it's in domicile, so very comfortable. Mars is not necessarily so comfortable in Libra. So while until the 22nd, there could maybe be more confrontations in relationships, possibly because you're feeling irritated at somebody else avoiding an issue, or you're feeling like other people are not doing their part, or they're taking too long, or they're too hesitant, or they're too indecisive. Those type of conflicts can come up. But when we get to the 22nd, your ruler Mars in domicile in Scorpio, you feel very empowered to act, and you feel very empowered to make changes, to face fears. You have a Scorpio 8th house. That's one of the reasons that you're a very fearless ascendant, especially. You face fears head on. You don't shy away from challenges. Mars going through Scorpio could be a time when you really feel this sense of empowerment and you're embracing change, and you're maybe facing your fears a little bit more than usual, Aries. And if you've been feeling a little bit run down, a little bit down about how other people are acting or what other people are doing or not doing, this is when you start to feel your energy and your vitality really uplifted. When we have eclipses in the 12th and 6th house, this can bring up matters of health. So some of you might be experiencing some health challenges with the eclipses going through your health houses. But with Mars going through Scorpio, you may finally feel like you're getting some energy back, and you may feel more willing to make necessary changes. And you might be quite ruthless with yourself as well, Aries, in terms of what you're doing, what you're eating, how you're living your life as well. You're looking to make changes generally for the sake of your health, for the sake of your well-being in September. Uranus is going to go retrograde in your 3rd house. So if you have been really, kind of out there with new ways of thinking, if you've been embracing a more rebellious way of thinking, if you have been feeling a little bit more inspired to march to the beat of your own drum when it comes to how you think, what you say, how you communicate, you're starting to reflect on those changes that you've been making. You may notice that you have reconsidered the way that you think, the way that you communicate. Maybe that's verbally or non-verbally, whether it's your body language or whether it's what you're saying. If you've been a little bit more active in social media or changing up your relationship to social media, or there's been some disruption with a sibling or a neighbor, you're sort of reflecting on these changes, and they may sort of settle a little bit with Uranus retrograde, and you're reflecting on what you are changing and how you're embracing a new way of doing these things. Uranus will be retrograde in that sector until February 2026, but Uranus is going to re-enter Taurus in November. So stay tuned for that. But for now, you're sort of reflecting on the way that you're thinking and going against the norm. And rethinking your revolutions with Uranus in Gemini in retrograde. So that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to your September horoscope. Taurus, I hope you're doing really well. So it's eclipse month, Taurus, it's eclipse season, and we have a total lunar eclipse happening in your 11th house. The 11th house is about our friendships, the communities that we're a part of, the social circles that we run in, the memberships that we have, and also the visions and ideals we have for the future. And it can also be that if you're interested in charity or humanitarian affairs, this also comes under this house. Now we have a total lunar eclipse here, which means change. Absolute change, significant transformation. When it's a total lunar eclipse, this can bring about endings. This month can bring about endings and beginnings for you, Taurus. So for some of you, you might be experiencing a change in the way that you view your future. So maybe something has happened in your life where you feel like the future is looking a little bit different to what you expected, and you're starting to feel your feelings shift of what you want, of what you view for the future. This could be a time as well when you're noticing that friendships are shifting and changing. Maybe some friendships are naturally coming to a close or suddenly coming to a close. Maybe you are moving away from certain teams, certain groups. Maybe you're bringing a bit of distance between you and other people that you were once very closely associated with. There's maybe significant changes happening in teams that you're a part of. So that can be people leaving teams that you're a part of, people leaving groups, or people re-entering groups or entering groups that you're a part of as well, Taurus. This eclipse is positive though, because it is ruled by an exalted Jupiter in Cancer. And for you, this is to do with communication, it's to do with your immediate friends. It feels like quite a significant eclipse for you, Taurus, when it comes to your friendships. And this can be where perhaps you are noticing positive friendships enter the picture. You're finding where you belong in certain groups. You're noticing that you feel very drawn to certain causes. You're noticing that you feel very drawn to certain communities and groups of people. You might find your soul tribe, for example. And if you look back to February, if there was something that you were beginning around that time when it comes to a group or a team or a friend, pay attention, because it may be coming full circle around the time of this lunar eclipse. Or if you were setting a vision for your future, you had a goal, this might be realized around the time of this eclipse. It does tend to bring change, so stay fluid and flow. It's Piscean energy, so flowing with the changes that are occurring. I know that's sometimes easier said than done, but this eclipse is one where you may feel like whatever way things are turning out with a group or a friend, you may feel as though this helps you become a better communicator, or this brings you information that you really needed to know. Sometimes we go through events in life that we don't necessarily enjoy, but it gives us this knowledge and information that's quite invaluable in the long run, and you will be glad that you know it. This can also bring about a change in the way that you view the future because of a sibling, because of a neighbor, because of something you learn, because of something that you're studying. This can change your vision of the future quite dramatically, and that can be a really positive thing. So say, for example, you never thought you were going to become an uncle, and all of a sudden your sibling tells you they're having a baby, and now you're going to be an uncle in the future. That's just a random example, but it can be anything like that. There can be significant growth and expansion happening with a sibling, because of a neighbor, within the neighborhood, within the community, and this really changes your vision of the future. Now, I like eclipses in the 11th house because I think oftentimes this is where we see a serendipitous wish come true out of nowhere. So that can also be something that happens. The 11th house can be a house of miracles. So there could be something quite miraculous happening for you, Taurus. Some of you could get your dream car as well. We also have this solar eclipse happening in Virgo, which is your 5th house. Now, this is at the 29th degree. And why is this interesting? Because there was a new moon in the same sign late August. So we have this very clear indicator from the cosmos that there's a new beginning happening for all of us in the Virgo part of our chart. For you, Taurus, this is to do with children. Some of you could become a parent. You could find out that you are expecting, your partner's expecting. This could be a time where there's a new beginning in the life of your children or a child in particular in your life. There could be a new start for them. And this might be something that is quite fated. So for a lot of you, this could be that say you have a grown child who's married. This could be where they are becoming a parent for the first time or something like that, or this could be you becoming a first-time parent. This eclipse is going to be in opposition to Saturn in your 12th house because Saturn is re-entering the 12th house on the 1st of September, which means that if you were thinking back to earlier on in the year, we're covering some old ground here. If you had responsibilities, if you were getting very serious about your future, if you were getting very serious about your friendships, if you were making lifelong friendships, if you were committing to a vision, working very hard on a vision, this may be a time where you're trying to balance the two. So there are these shifts happening in your Pisces sector, which is your sector of friendships and your social communities and your visions and your goals for the future. And then we have this eclipse coming in that's going to oppose that, and it's saying, surprise, here's your new beginning in your Virgo house. Now, this doesn't have to be to do with children at all. If that's not something you're interested in, if you're not in that cycle of your life, this can also be new love for some of you if you're single. You know, this could be a new love coming into the picture. I will say if you are single, it can be new love, but it can be someone that really feels like you've known them before, you've met them before. This can be someone that you've even dated before. If there is new love coming into the picture for those of you that are single, this can be someone who, with Mercury, the dispositor of this eclipse being in your 6th house, someone you meet at the gym, someone you meet at work, someone that you meet at the doctor's office, someone you meet living your day-to-day life, just serendipitously, there they are. But for a lot of you, with it being in Virgo and Mercury being in the 6th, you could absolutely, if you're single, meet someone at the gym or at a sporting event, or it's something to do with health. For others of you, if it's none of those things, the 5th house is also simply to do with what makes us happy. And you might be finding, Taurus, what makes you happy does come in the form of taking better care of your health, organizing your routines, your schedule, getting that in order is something that maybe leads you to happiness. You know, you could find happiness in a particular exercise. You could find happiness in a particular sport or with a particular way of eating. That can be something that's changing for you as well, Taurus. As you can see, the 5th house is, every house in astrology has many different ways that this can play out, but I do feel for a lot of you it could be new beginnings with children, it could be new beginnings in love, or it could be new beginnings with something that makes you happy. And of course, this is something that you have to balance with your commitments to the future and maybe reorganize or restructure your commitments in order to make this work and make time for it. We're all trying to find balance, Taurus, in September between Pisces energy, which is intuition, and Virgo energy, which is logical. You know, it's getting your schedule down, but also having the belief. It's taking the action, but believing in it as well. Trying to find balance between the spiritual and the mundane, the practical and the emotional, that type of thing. But it can be achieved. We just have to make sure not to neglect either. So you're not neglecting the things that you love, the people that you love, but you're also not neglecting how important it is to be serious about your future sometimes. So maybe you're falling in love with someone, or you've the option to fall in love with someone, but you're thinking, do our futures align? And you have to kind of take the practical steps and have the practical conversations about it so that it doesn't crash and burn. You know what I mean? Mars is also entering your partnership sector this month, Taurus. This happens every 2 years. Mars is in domicile in Scorpio, and Mars will enter Scorpio on the 22nd of September. Mars is very strong here. You may be feeling empowered to make changes when it comes to your partnerships, your relationships, your spouse, your business relationships. You're feeling very passionate about the person in your life. You're feeling very much like you want to be close to them, you want to connect with them, you want to go deeper with them, or if you're looking for love, you're pursuing it passionately. You may have to make changes, may have to make transformations in order to accommodate a relationship. Sometimes this can also, or to bring it in, but sometimes this can also lead to a little bit more, because Mars is very passionate, but passion can lead to tension as well. So maybe for some of you, there's a bit more of an inclination to have an argument with a partner, or to there could just be a little bit more tension here and there, or it could bring a bit more conflict into relationships in general. It doesn't just have to be a romantic partner. Just in terms of how you relate to other people, you might find them a bit more fiery, or you may be feeling a bit more fiery as well, Taurus. So that is what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to your September horoscope. Gemini, I hope you're doing really well. Now, where do I start with this? Because we have significant shifts happening for you as a mutable sign. You're one of the 4 mutable signs: Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo. The more of these you have in your chart, the more impacted you will be by September, because it is not only eclipse season, but Uranus is retrograding in your sign. So we have a lot of shifts, and Saturn is re-entering Pisces. Now, Gemini, for you, the one thing that I want to point out, there comes in life very key moments when it comes to our career, or when it comes to our goals or our sense of purpose. Not everybody's purpose is their profession. Not everybody's purpose in this life is to do with their career. For some people it absolutely is. For some people it is not. Some people don't make money from their purpose. Some people don't. Some people do. So with this total lunar eclipse coming up in Pisces, it's on the 7th of September. Look back 6 months, the end of February of this year. Did you have an intention? Did you have an idea? Did you start a process? There's something very significant coming up with your career this month, your professional title, your profession generally, your status, your titles, your boss even. For a lot of you, there's a peak moment happening in your career that I really feel is going to benefit you financially. You're wrapping something up professionally, and this may benefit you financially. Now, for some people, it varies so much in terms of how the eclipse interacts with your chart. One person, that could be redundancy, but a big payout because of it. Another person, that could be retiring and getting a pension from that, because Jupiter is in your 2nd house of financial expansion. For some of you, this is a promotion. For some of you, this is a new job that pays better. And if for those of you that it's not paying better, or money's not involved, it gives you confidence. It gives you a sense of self-esteem, self-worth. Maybe someone really believes in you. Maybe a boss really believes in you, and they're saying, hey, I want you to take over this company. Or, hey, I want you to take this position. And you can't quite believe that they think you should. Or you're wrapping up something with your career that is bringing you in more money than you thought. That's one way that this eclipse could be playing out for you, Gemini. Now, Saturn is re-entering Pisces via retrograde on the 1st of September. If you've been working really hard at a career, at a goal, at your purpose, this can be the time where you get that reward, you reap that karma. If, on the other hand, you've been one of those people that has been lackadaisy, you've been taking advantage of your profession or your job, or you've been sort of trying to live life on easy mode, you might realize with Saturn back here that you don't want to do that anymore, and you want to change things, because you may see that there's more value comes out of a job well done That's only for a select few of you, but I think for most of you, Gemini, you could really see the payout for your career or your job. And eclipses are funny because, on one hand, and I'm not saying this to diminish changes that are uncomfortable. Trust me, I've experienced the eclipse shit show of a lifetime here and there. But I think whenever we have eclipses, there usually is something that we look back on years down the line and say, do you know what? Okay, that happened and this is where I went from there. You usually see that you personally level up, even if you don't quite understand the why behind it. You know, eclipses often happen where someone leaves our life or someone enters our life and we don't always know the reason right away. But this can be when you're sort of redirecting in a new direction. But I really feel with Jupiter being in Cancer, this is positive for you, Gemini. Neptune is also in Aries at this time, so this can be something that really changes the people that you're associating with, the connections that you have, the social circles that you run in. There can be something wrapping up with them as well, especially if you worked with a group of people. There can be something wrapping up with those people in your life, Gemini. Maybe people are leaving your job, you're leaving a team, whatever. Now, we also have a partial solar eclipse in Virgo, and this is happening on the 21st of September, 29 degrees of Virgo. We had a new moon in this same sector at the end of August. New beginnings, new chapters when it comes to your home and when it comes to your family. Now, eclipses in the fourth are not always easy, especially when the South Node is engaged. This can be a time where you notice that when it comes to home, when it comes to family, there can be changes that range from new and exciting, and maybe there's a new baby being born, maybe there's a lot of weddings, maybe there's a new home, maybe there's whatever the case may be. And then on the other hand, some people experience the loss of a family member. Some people move when they don't want to move. There's a lot of changes happen with eclipses that are big parts of our life, and you'll know what that storyline is for you by now, Gemini, because the South Node has been there since January. We had a lunar eclipse there in March that was very significant, so you may have experienced changes in that sector. But for a lot of you, this partial solar eclipse, this could bring a new chapter when it comes to your home and when it comes to your family. And the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, is in the fifth house. So I really feel for a lot of you, there could be something new happening in your family when it comes to children, a baby being born, someone announcing a pregnancy. Maybe you're starting your own family, Gemini, or maybe there is going to be new, maybe you move in with someone that you're dating, or maybe something, it feels as though there's a new chapter in your home and your family. So this can be properties being bought, properties being sold, especially when it comes to your children if you have them. This can be your child buying their first house. This can be your kids are moving out, flying the nest. This could be that you are buying a home to be closer to your children. There seems to be this link between children or love and your home. And for some of you, this can also be art and creativity, your passions. So maybe wanting to have a bit more beauty in the home, wanting to have room and space to be creative, wanting to have room and space to do the things that you love to do, or just making your home, you're really wanting to fill it with love with Mercury being in Libra. Mercury is the dispositor. And some of you might also feel the need to get your home cleaner. Did that sentence make sense? Did that sentence make sense? You're wanting to clean up your home, spruce it up perhaps as well, or just redecorate. But I do think it's for the sake of beauty. Maybe something that a partner suggests. Your partner might be wanting to redecorate, renovate, that type of thing. And these things will take shape over the next 6 months. And you'll really see possibly a milestone change in the spring when it comes to home matters, family matters, property, that kind of thing as well, Gemini. So that is what I have for you. One of the things I have to mention, actually, apologies, is that you have Uranus retrograde in your sign from September 6th. So Uranus is going retrograde in your sign. If you've been making changes, if you've been feeling a bit more liberated, a bit more free, you've been wanting to change things, march to the beat of your own drum, you're wanting to think differently, act differently, dress differently, Uranus retrograde is just slowing that down a little bit, bringing it more inward and saying, how do you feel about these changes? How do you feel about this revolution that you're having of self? Because sometimes people are just destructive with Uranus. It's like, are you rebelling against something because it's true to who you are, or are you just being destructive of self? this is the time to check in and decide if you're just trying to shake things up for the sake of it because you're bored, or you're doing it because these are the changes that you really need to make. So you're reflecting on the changes you're making personally, in terms of your identity, in terms of your image, in terms of your personality and your style, Gemini. You're reflecting on that going forward. That is what I have for you, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to your September horoscope. I hope you're doing really well. So Cancer, this is going to be a significant month for all of us because it is eclipse season and we have a lot of divine intervention and fated occurrences happening when the eclipses come in, especially because one of them is a total lunar eclipse. So let's talk about that one first. It's going to be on the 7th of September, and that eclipse, Cancer, is going to be happening in your 9th house. So it's a pretty positive house to have an eclipse. Saturn is retrograding back into this house as well from September 1st. So we're covering old ground. Now, the 9th house is very often a travel house. This is where we see trips abroad. This is where we see vacations. This is where we see sabbaticals. This is when we see traveling to study abroad. All things pertaining to travel, visas as well, relocations abroad can come under this. So for some of you, this one feels like you could be relocating. Jupiter is in your sign this year. So you're noticing that, and Jupiter is the dispositor of this eclipse. You might be noticing, Cancer, that you feel more adventurous, you're seeking new horizons, you're seeking new visions, you're wanting to travel, you're wanting to explore. So for a lot of you, travel could be in the cards for you, or making travel plans. And this could be just simply because you have that adventurous spirit and you're wanting to travel and you're wanting to explore and you're wanting to expand. For some of you, though, this could be where you actually just want to expand your mind. The 9th house is where we study. It is higher education. It's also our religious and spiritual beliefs. So for a lot of you, Cancer, your viewpoints of the world, your spiritual beliefs, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, whatever it is that you believe in, could be shifting and could be changing, and you're growing and you're expanding as a result. Some of you could be getting an education. You could be graduating. You could be wrapping up a period of study. Some of you could be getting exam results. You could be... It feels as though there could be a pivotal moment for you, Cancer, in terms of your view. So that could be that you get your degree and now you're standing with this unimaginable horizon in front of you and you're thinking, okay, well, what's next? And you're sort of considering, well, what do I believe in? What would make me feel this sense of adventure? Because it keeps coming back to adventure with you, Cancer, whether it's of the mind or whether it's literally. This eclipse can be a time when you are traveling, and this is an eclipse when you can also be either wrapping up a period of study or saying, actually, do you know what? I want to go back and get that degree. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to study. I'm ready to put my heart and soul into something. Now, that eclipse is also ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is in your career sector. So how can that look? Well, maybe you're thinking, I want to go down this route professionally, but I'll need this degree, or I'll need this certification, or I'll need to move. Those can all be significant factors when it comes to this eclipse. For you, to be honest, I feel like it's quite a nice one. You know, if you have early degree Cancer placements, 0, 1, 2 degrees, you might be feeling challenges around this time. It can feel more challenging because of Neptune being there. And that's really putting this emphasis on enmeshing yourself in your career. It can be very hard to have boundaries with your career. It can be very hard to have boundaries with your work. But I think for most of you, this is about feeling that calling for adventure or feeling that excitement for change, honestly. I think for a lot of you, Cancer. Now, we do have a partial solar eclipse coming up in Virgo, and this is happening on the 21st of September, the autumn equinox. And this one is kind of calling on you to become a better communicator, especially when it comes to your family or when it comes to property. There can be significant communication coming up at this time, Cancer, when it comes to home matters, property matters. You know, say you're hiring someone to work on your home, say you're trying to buy a home, say there's something significant happening in your family. And this sector, you know, home, family, there could have been a bit of frustration and a bit of tension recently with Mars there until the 22nd. But this eclipse is where you're getting very clear on what you need to say and how you need to say it. There's a new chapter happening in your third house, so this can be a new chapter in a relationship to a sibling, to a neighbor, to an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, you know, extended family members. For some of you, this can also be, as I say, taking something that helps you learn, taking a course, taking a workshop. And don't disregard that as being small or trivial. When there's eclipses in the third, if you go to a workshop, if you go to a class, if you take a short course, a lot of the time what you learn actually shapes the course of your destiny, even if it feels small at the time. I remember I had eclipses in my third house and I got my Reiki certification, and that's been a big part of my life since. I went on workshops where I learned spiritual knowledge that I've used ever since, and it's actually been quite helpful to me. And I met people in those places who were very significant on my journey. So don't disregard that. If you feel called to take a course, if you feel called to take a workshop or go to that seminar, go, because you may meet people who actually feel in the long run like family to you. For some of you, believe it or not, you could actually go to a workshop and meet someone that you are related to as well. That's one way that it can play out for some of you too. But these changes will take shape over the next 6 months. I think a lot of you are really being called to learn new things, Cancer, and it's going to be invaluable in your journey going forward. Mars is entering your 5th house on the 22nd. Mars is in domicile in Scorpio, and this can be a really fun time for you if you're single, dating people that you're very attracted to, a lot of passion, a lot of romance. This can also be that you attract partners who are a bit more, on the positive side, very attractive, very sensual. On the negative side, you could attract partners who are a bit controlling, a bit jealous, or a bit suspicious. But it can also be a time where you might notice there are some points of contention with siblings, or if you're dating, you could maybe date someone who's, you know, go on a date with someone who's a bit challenging of a personality. And this can also be a time when you can really channel your emotions quite well, Cancer, into a creative project of any kind. So whatever kind of art form you're into or however you express yourself creatively. But it can certainly be a very passionate time with Mars going through Scorpio. Now, I do feel for you with Saturn re-entering your 9th house, where we do have the eclipses. If you've been putting in some hard work for study, I think you're going to get the results that you want. They may even exceed your expectations. If you've been slacking, this can be a rude awakening as to what you need to do going forward. It really depends with Saturn. A lot of the time when you put in the work, you can feel for a very long time like you're not getting anywhere. So for you, if you've maybe been feeling a bit challenged when it comes to studies or travel, or a bit limited, this can be a time when you get rewarded for your hard work. For others of you, this can be a time where you're reconsidering the work that you are doing, because Saturn loves to reward hard work, but with it being in the 9th house, if you don't feel like this is something that you're aligned with spiritually, it can be very hard to get the results that you want. And Saturn going through the 9th can also test your faith. So you might be noticing that deja vu of, do I believe in this anymore? Uranus is going retrograde in your 12th house, and if you have been sort of trying to seek more unusual or alternative routes of healing, this is a time when you're starting to reflect on if these are working, Cancer. That is what I have for you. I hope you have a great month, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to your horoscope for September. Hope you're doing really well. So Leo, it's eclipse season. And eclipse season, as we know, is a very fated time where very significant or monumental events occur, and they affect all of us differently. If you have Virgo placements in particular, because a lot of Leos do, This can be a very significant month for you, especially if you've anything 28, 29 of Virgo, but also if you have anything at 14, 15, 16 of Pisces or Virgo, or even Sagittarius and Gemini. This can be very pivotal for you, Leo. But eclipses tend to bring change, and for you, this is quite profound because the total lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th of September is actually happening in your 8th house, which is the house of transformation. So with this eclipse in particular, because it is ruled by an exalted Jupiter in your 12th house, I feel for a lot of you this could be sort of a turning point in healing. So this can be a breakthrough with a therapist. This can be a breakthrough in healing from something in your life. This can be an emotional breakthrough for some of you. Sometimes you have to break down to break through, but I feel for a lot of you that this is a turning point when it comes to a healing journey or when it comes to some sort of psychological exploration that you've been doing. You know, the 8th house and the 12th house, it's very much where we see a therapist, where we see a hypnotist, where we see a counselor, where we begin working on something when it comes to our mental health or our emotional baggage or past traumas. And I feel for a lot of you, this year may have been the year that you've been really working on that. And if not, there are other ways that this can play out. But I do feel for a lot of you, this might be a significant chapter when it comes to your healing emotionally and spiritually, Leo. Now, I won't deny the fact that when we have eclipses in the 8th house, sometimes this can bring about a crisis. So maybe this year you've gone through a couple of very challenging experiences, maybe more than one, maybe one. But you've gone through some sort of challenging experience, and these emotions can come up with this eclipse in order for you to release them. So if you've been stuffing them down or suppressing them, you can feel with this Pisces eclipse that you have been summoned to release them, summoned to let your feelings be felt, with the 8th house and the 12th house both in play here. Now, the eclipse is also ruled by Neptune in the 9th house, so this is also kind of a spiritual exploration for you, where you may feel very connected to the divine, you may feel very connected to spirit guides or angels, or very connected to your faith this year. Jupiter is going through the 12th as well, which is associated with that. The key with a Pisces eclipse is to stay fluid and sort of go with the flow and let your feelings come up. And if you are going through a crisis of some kind, Leo, as can come up with the 8th house, with Jupiter in the 12th, especially exalted, you may feel kind of divinely protected at the same time. That's not to diminish anything that could be challenging for you, because, you know, I know from experience that it's sometimes frustrating to hear people say, oh, it's fate, it was divine intervention, this was meant to happen, eventually you'll see the reason, because sometimes an eclipse can come along and completely shake up your life and you feel like you've just been slapped in the face with a wet fish. I'm conscious of the fact this is a Pisces eclipse, but oftentimes these changes do lead to something significant down the line, even if it takes time, and it's not to diminish anything that you're experiencing. It's just that we don't always see the reason, and I have to say sometimes it can take years before you actually understand why you had to go through something challenging with an eclipse. I certainly don't diminish them at all, because they can be very challenging. But for you, I really feel like for a lot of you, it could actually be something that's entirely internal, something you're experiencing privately. You could be dealing with feelings of loss. You could have gone through a loss in your life, of course, with eclipses in the 8th and Jupiter in the 12th. You could have had to let something or someone go. Or sometimes with the 8th house, what we actually see is just the concept of loss, the concept of death, for example, can come up through a challenge in health or a health crisis or someone else's crisis. And it can sort of make you conscious that, oh, hey, life is actually short, or how do I want to live, or what do I want, or what is most meaningful. So the way that you're experiencing this can be very different for each of you, Leo, but it certainly feels like it's transforming you emotionally, I would say, but maybe also spiritually. That partial solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st of September, this is happening in your 2nd house. So we have this lunar eclipse in the 8th and we have this solar eclipse in the 2nd. Both of these houses are also financial houses. So there can be a new way of making money for a lot of you, Leo. And that solar eclipse in Virgo is ruled by Mercury in your third house. Mercury will be in Libra at the time of this eclipse. And what I'm kind of seeing for you, Leo, is that if there's a new way of making money, this may come from teaching, communicating, taking a course. This may come from something you're doing with a sibling or a neighbor. This could be something that you are doing online. But essentially, it feels, Leo, as though your skills in communication, especially maybe one-on-one with another person, or your skills of teaching, could be something that makes you money going forward. It can also be a new way for some of you, maybe it's not a huge deal, but you could be working with your finances online differently, maybe setting up a different bank account or working with a different bank in order to grow your finances. With that total lunar eclipse in Virgo and Saturn returning to your 8th house on the 1st, for some of you, you could actually come into an inheritance or benefit from someone else financially, Leo. So there could be money coming to you from another source, maybe from someone who's passed, but maybe also from a partnership in your life, maybe your spouse, or they could be getting some sort of payout, for example. And this could really be something that comes out of nowhere. For some of you, it could be something that helps you pay off debt or recoups a loss, with Jupiter being in the 12th house. Mars is going to be entering Scorpio on the 22nd, and I like this for you, Leo, because you may feel more driven to get something done when it comes to a home or a property matter. You might feel like you finally have the energy to do this renovation. You might feel like you finally have the energy to go find that house that you want. Or you may have the energy to address something with a family member. One thing I will point out about this, though, is that Mars being in Scorpio can sometimes, for you, Leo, manifest as a bit of irritation and frustration with family or family members, with Mars going through the 4th house. Uranus is going retrograde in Gemini on the 6th of September. And this can be a time where if you've really been changing up who you socialize with, the friendships that you have, your vision of the future, this is the time to reflect on your own revolution. This is the time to reflect on your the changes that you're making when it comes to the groups that you're a part of, the teams that you're a part of, the friends that you have, the online spaces in particular that you frequent. Sometimes with Uranus going through a sign, we have to reconsider during a retrograde if we are making changes because they feel authentic to who we are and who we're becoming. If they feel true to who we are, the friendships that we have, if they feel true to who we are. And that's important because the company that you keep does influence you. But this can also be a time when you're realizing if you're just making changes for the sake of shaking things up, that doesn't always work out so well. Some revolutions are not worth it. So this is really about coming back to whether or not you feel like the changes that you're making with your friendship circles are from a place of careless rebellion, or if they are about embracing what type of friendships and teams and causes would be true to who you are, Leo, and true to what you want from a friendship. And they can bring a lot of shifts and changes. If someone in your friendship group or your team has maybe been acting a little bit erratically, this can also be a time when they calm down and sort of recenter and reevaluate what they're doing as well. But Leo, that is what I have for you in September. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to your September horoscope. Virgo, I hope you're doing really well, and a very happy birthday to any Virgos celebrating their birthday in September if you are watching for your sun sign. So Virgo, this is a very significant month for all of us collectively because it is eclipse season, but especially for you because one of these eclipses is happening in your sign. So let's start with that. There's a partial solar eclipse in your sign on the 21st of September. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, 29 degrees is as far as a sign can go before entering another sign. So when we have something in the final degree of a sign, it is sort of this wrapping up point. You know, even if this is a solar eclipse, this is still going to be a wrapping up point for you as well. If you think back to August 23rd, there was a new moon in your sign also, and that time it was at 0 degrees of your sign, which emphasizes this point, Virgo, that you are changing quite a bit. So for a lot of you, you may have had some physical changes this year, especially if you're a Virgo rising. You know, you could have gone through some sort of physical transformation, had some sort of procedure. Some of you could have changed your style. Some of you could have had something happen health-wise that changed the way that you are. For some reason, I know sometimes people don't like these examples, but Kris Jenner comes to mind. She's a Virgo rising, and if you know, you know. But this can be a time when you've really changed your aesthetic, your identity, your image, or just how you show up to the world, Virgo. You know, you might notice that you're changing rather profoundly. And I feel for a lot of you that this solar eclipse is a time when you are saying goodbye to one way of doing things and hello to a new way of doing things for you personally. So whether you're switching up your style, whether you're doing something with your aesthetic, your image, whether you are just changing the way that you show up to the world, Virgo, this solar eclipse is bringing in something new. Now, it's going to be ruled by Mercury, of course, as Mercury is your ruler, and Mercury at the time of this eclipse will be in Libra, which is your second house. Now, the second house, yes, it's a money house, so you could be spending money on your appearance, on your aesthetic, on your style, on something for your, you know, either for your aesthetic or for your health. You could be spending money on something like that, like well, there's so many ways that can play out, but something that maybe changes your appearance or something that changes your physical health and well-being. But for a lot of you, it can be that you're doing something for the sake of your confidence, for your self-esteem, for your self-worth. And that doesn't have to be something that's coming from a place of insecurity, Virgo. It can actually be coming from a place of self-love where you're saying, actually, I want to eat better because I want to enjoy my life for longer. You know, you can be coming at it from a place of healthy self-esteem where you're saying, I want to dress better because I feel better about myself, or because I want to feel better about myself, not because I need the approval of XYZ. It can just be a time when you're sort of committing to taking better care of yourself because you care about yourself. So for a lot of you, Virgo, this can bring actual physical changes, and it can be something, as I say, that you're investing money into, or it can be something that you are doing because you feel it will give you more self-esteem and self-confidence. And this can also be perhaps just wanting to show up to the world a bit differently because you want different things from your relationships and your connections. We have this total lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th, and Saturn is returning to Pisces in the 1st. So with this total lunar eclipse happening in your sector of partnerships and relationships, your relationships may be changing quite significantly in September. So it's going to be ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Cancer, which for you, Virgo, is your 11th house. That's to do with the future, it's to do with friendships, it's to do with social connections, it's to do with memberships. And it's also ruled by Neptune in the 8th house, which is to do with transformations and other people's money and other people's resources. So, total lunar eclipse in your 7th house. This can play out so many different ways. I'll try to list as many examples as I possibly can. If you're in a relationship, this could be that you are coming out of it because you don't see a future with this person, or you feel like the future would be more expansive if I just saw a butterfly go past my window, so I don't know if that's significant as a symbol, but it could be that you are coming out of it because you want to have a more expansive view of the future. This doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, this can be a business relationship. You're wanting to broaden your horizons, maybe. This can also be that you get into a relationship. This can be that you meet someone and you fall in love. This could be someone you meet through a friend. This could be someone that you meet through a networking event. This can be someone you connect with online. This can be somebody that you, as I say, you meet through a friend, you meet through a team member, you meet in a group setting, you meet. The 11th house can be online, but it can also just be that you meet this person and suddenly your future broadens, it goes wider. You want to travel with this person, you're thinking of all the ways that the future can play out with this person. It sort of broadens your horizons because you've met them. It can also be that you and a partner that you're in decide it's time to think about the future. Maybe it's time to get engaged, time to get married, it's time to finalize those wedding plans, it's finally time to do the thing. So it's so many ways that this can play out, Virgo, but I will say this, it feels with Jupiter in the 11th house, especially because Jupiter is exalted, whatever is happening for you relationship-wise, it really is probably for... Now, I'm hesitant to say that actually because, okay, so here's the thing. Here's the bugbear with eclipses. Eclipses can bring in significant change that at the time feels awful. And we don't always see the bigger picture at the time because it feels awful. And I will also say it can take a very long time before you see it. I have had that experience with an eclipse before where sometimes I still look back at it and think, why? Why? But it still leads somewhere. And we don't always understand the why behind why things happen. So I'm hesitant to say the grand old everything happens for a reason and everything happens for the best, because there are events in your life that you really don't see that for, and they don't feel for the best, and sometimes they really, really hurt. So I'm hesitant to say that. But because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, it feels like at the very least, if something is not going the way you want it to in a relationship, Virgo, there are good things in the future. Jupiter in the 11th is about wish fulfillment. So for a lot of you, it can be a good thing, somewhere down the line. And this can also be that if a relationship ends, one can come in that's just as important. But I feel for a lot of you looking at this eclipse, like this could really be the time where a significant shift happens in your relationship life, where you feel ready to merge with another person. Maybe something's changed financially, or something feels like you've overcome something, and I don't know, it feels like something's shifting for a lot of you in your relationship life. This can be meeting someone and falling in love and them being your person. And it can be because you're sort of ready to commit to somebody with Saturn back in your 7th house. And you've had some tough lessons in love and relationships. And again, when I say relationships, it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be business. This can be or just general one-on-one interactions. You've been doing the work to connect with people more. So that can be one way that this plays out. You've been doing the work to connect with people and to form meaningful one-on-one relationships in your life, because they matter for you, Virgo. So to be honest, for a lot of you, I really feel with that total lunar eclipse that it can either be that there's a milestone in an existing relationship within the next 6 months, or it can be that you meet somebody and that's your person. Or it can be that if you're in a relationship that's not working, you feel like the future would expand if you left. Maybe there'd be more possibilities in the horizon. Eclipses bring in those type of shifts, Virgo. And I also think for a lot of you, as if the change and change and change and change and change is not enough, Uranus is going retrograde in Gemini. So for a lot of you, you have been looking at a new way of some kind of, basically, essentially, Virgo, here's the thing. Uranus going through Gemini. This brings change to your career. This brings change to your goals, your purpose, and not for everybody is purpose about career. Your purpose isn't always your job. It's not always how you make money, but it can be your career generally. And Uranus going through this sector kind of says, okay, you've been doing XYZ for a while. Isn't it time for a change? So for a lot of you, you may have gone through a significant change career-wise this year. You might have decided to rebel a little bit, to go against the status quo, to try something different. And now Uranus is going retrograde and saying, okay, how are you doing with these changes? Do you feel like they're productive for you? Do you feel like they're working out for you? With Uranus retrograde in the 10th, this is reflecting on whether or not you're just rebelling for the sake of shaking things up, and maybe it's not the most noble rebellion, or you're reflecting on how the changes that you're making maybe actually do feel better for you. You're kind of reconnecting to see, because Uranus hasn't been in Gemini long, you're sort of reconnecting to see if these career changes or these goal changes or this new purpose that you're feeling drawn to, if these changes are resonating with you still. And that's what Uranus retrograde does, Virgo. But with the sun in your sign until the 22nd, and with an eclipse in your sign, and your ruler Mercury is going to be in your sign from the 2nd to the 18th, this is really going to be a time when you're thinking about yourself, and not in a way that is selfish, not in a way that is narcissistic. You're just simply checking in with you and saying, how am I doing? How am I showing up? How do I feel about myself? How do I look? How do I live? And this can be a wonderful time to say, actually, do you know what? I'm not happy with this. I want to make a change. Or it can be a great time to say, I really like the direction that I'm going in. So whatever the case may be for you, Virgo, this is a check-in point where you're probably going in a new direction when it comes to your physicality, your physical body, your self-image, your self-worth, your self-confidence, how you dress, how you style yourself, how you nourish yourself, how you take care of yourself. And eclipses really bring in that check-in with yourself when it's in the first house. And for a lot of you, it looks, to be honest, like a bit of a glow up. It looks like you're sort of feeling more like yourself, because certainly with the South Node going through your sign since January, you've probably been letting go of a lot of perfectionistic tendencies that weren't actually perfectionistic. You were just being hard on yourself. So I think a lot of you might actually have a new chapter coming in that feels a bit more caring to yourself, honestly. Mars is entering Scorpio on the 22nd, and for you, this one is going to be where you feel more driven to learn, to study. This can be a great time to take a short course. This can be a great time to read, because you feel empowered to get the information that you need. So it's like, if you wanted to read a book, you could probably read about 3 in a week with this energy. Mars going through Scorpio, because Mars is domicile here. If you wanted to study for a test, you could probably cram everything in a day. I'm not recommending that to you, but you might just feel you have the energy to learn more. This can also be a time when you maybe bicker with siblings a bit more than usual. This can also be a time that brings about a bit of road rage. Be careful about that. Maybe some bickering with neighbours. But for the most part, with Mars domicile here, you feel empowered to make the changes necessary in this sector. So with how you communicate, you could be a lot more direct. I will say you could inadvertently hurt people's feelings without meaning to. You're that direct. And you're empowered to make change. I will say though, Mars in Scorpio is quite good for moving in silence. So if you have something you want to study or something you want to learn, it might be best to do it privately, because you may find that the influence of others is not as helpful as you hoped. So that is what is there for you, Virgo. It's a powerful month for you, and I hope it turns out in your greatest good. That is what I have for you, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to your September forecast. I hope you're doing really well. So Libra, your season begins in September, but before we get there, we have eclipse season. So I want to highlight your health for a second. We have this total lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is your 6th house of wellness, and this is your routines as well, but also your day-to-day work. So a total lunar eclipse here is significant on its own, but we also have the planet Saturn returning to this sector via retrograde. Saturn was here in the first quarter of the year. So what does that mean? Well, if you were working really hard on something at your job, or you were working really hard on bettering your health, maybe being more disciplined with your health and wellness routines, or just your job in general, this can actually be where you see some kind of a reward. Eclipses in the 6th house do tend to coincide with job changes. So there could be some change going on in your workplace. That can be co-workers leaving, colleagues leaving or moving around, colleagues returning. Sometimes lunar eclipses can be associated with a woman exiting the picture. So a woman might be leaving the workplace where you are. It can also be that you're going through a job change, so maybe you're leaving a job. For others of you, this can be a time where there are some changes when it comes to your health and your well-being that you are either embracing or resisting with an eclipse. With Pisces, it's better to go with the flow. But for a lot of you, this can bring dietary changes. It's not uncommon for someone to, say, go from being a meat eater to a vegetarian when there's eclipses in the 6th, or maybe pescatarian because it's Pisces. It's also not uncommon for someone to reverse that. It's just changing from one way of eating to another is quite common with eclipses in the 6th house. And also being more interested in the gym or more interested in certain sports. Maybe for you it's water sports. But essentially, lunar eclipses in the 6th house bring about changes in terms of our routines and how we take care of ourselves and our well-being. Now, you have Mars in the 1st house until the 22nd, so I think for a lot of you Libra, you could potentially be more motivated to take care of yourself, to exercise, and also to balance out your energy levels if you feel like they are a little bit skeweth. But it can certainly bring about changes at your job or where you work. This is highlighted even more so because the traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter. And that means that the dispositor of this eclipse is Jupiter in your 10th house, which is career. So if you're leaving to go to a new job, chances are you've more opportunity to expand, or you've more opportunity for promotion. Or some of you could be experiencing that in your career, maybe because people are moving out of your way. With a lunar eclipse in the 10th, that's possible in some regards. Libra. But just remember, with Jupiter in the 10th, it's okay to be seen. It's okay to put yourself out there, to be more visible, because when Jupiter's in the 10th, more often than not, you have a higher chance of a better reception, getting the promotion, becoming the leader, if that's something you're interested in. Having more eyes on you. And obviously, Jupiter, we say it's the great benefic, it is indeed, but it can also bring about, the more eyes are on you, the more that opens you up to criticism as well. So things will never be perfect, but it brings more of an opportunity to advance professionally for sure. We also have a partial solar eclipse in Virgo, which for you is the 12th house. Now, solar eclipses can be a time when men exit the picture, believe it or not. So with this being in your 12th house, Libra, it could be that that is occurring for you, but not everybody will be experiencing that. That can be a man leaving the workplace as well. With a solar eclipse in the 12th house, oftentimes this indicates a 6-month period where you're more focused on inner work. And this could be a time when you decide, you know what, I'd quite like to see a therapist, I'd quite like to see a psychiatrist, I'd quite like to see a shaman, a Reiki practitioner, whatever it is, someone that can help you heal. And this is because with the dispositor of this eclipse being Mercury in your sign, in your 1st house at this time, you may feel like you need to talk about something, or you might feel like you need to share a secret, or you may feel like you need to talk about what's been going on for you, what's been coming up for you in a dream, what has been on your mind, or maybe you've been experiencing some sort of symptoms that you feel like they're coming from an unprocessed emotion, and this may be the time when you're looking into that. I do feel for a lot of you, you want to talk it out to heal whatever is going on for you. So this brings this new beginning in terms of looking after your mental health, your emotions, your spiritual health. That is going to be, it's going to require you to talk, I think, with Mercury in your sign, or also it's just going to require you to communicate in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like the mind-body connection, the mind-body-soul connections are very strong with you this month, and it's really going to shift how you live. Other things that are going on for you, Libra, Uranus is going retrograde in Gemini on the 6th of September. Uranus hasn't been in here for very long and hasn't made much of a move yet, but has been harmonizing with the other planets. Uranus in your 9th house for you, Libra, can really revolutionize your beliefs. And this may be a time where you're noticing if you feel like the changes that you're making, the revolutions that you're having when it comes to maybe what you study. Maybe, for example, everyone in your family has always studied law and you're deciding you don't want to study law. Maybe there's been changes when it comes to your traveling, unexpected trips, unexpected changes in where you go. You're sort of reflecting on those changes and whether or not they are coming from a place of authenticity or a place of boredom. And maybe it's just, sometimes with Uranus, we can sort of shake things up just for the sake of shaking things up. And Uranus retrograde is a time to sort of rethink those revolutions and whether or not they are coming from the right place for you. So for you, that's to do with travel and it's to do with higher education. Mars is moving into your money sector. It's leaving your sign on the 22nd and shifting into your money sector. And you'll probably be quite glad to have Mars out of your first house when Mars is not so comfortable in your sign. It is your opposite sign. And this will be better for your partnerships as well, Libra. Mars moving into your second house can be a time when you feel really motivated to make money and positively transform your finances. You feel you have the energy to do it. Mercury going through your sign from the 18th of September to the 6th of October, and particularly with it ruling that eclipse, it feels like what you have to say, what you have to communicate is more important, and you may be called upon to speak more than you usually would, but you'll feel more up to it with Mercury going through your sign. You want to share your thoughts, you want to share your opinions, and people might require you to share, whether it's in relationships or whether it's in your career, people might require you to share what's been on your mind or what's been going on for you behind the scenes. You might notice people saying, hey, you've been a bit quiet, what's been going on, or something of that nature as well, Libra. But that is what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful September, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to your horoscope for September 2025. So Scorpio, there is going to be a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and that is going to be happening on the 7th of September. We also have Saturn re-entering Pisces via retrograde on the 1st of September. So your Pisces house has quite a lot of significant activity in September, and for you, that is the 5th house. Now it's a lunar eclipse, which means that it coincides with a full moon, so there can be a peak experience happening in your 5th house. So this can be falling in love, this can be a pregnancy or a birth, this can be exceptional creativity happening for you. Now just bear in mind that the effects of an eclipse can take up to 6 months to manifest. So if this isn't something that happens in September in full bloom, there's probably going to be some signs of what it may be over the next 6 months. So it could look like something like this. The dispositor of this lunar eclipse is Jupiter. Jupiter is transiting your 9th house. So that could be bringing matters surrounding travel or higher education to the lives of your children. This could bring travel, higher education, foreign affairs to your love life. So this can be, traveling with one of your kids. This could be traveling with someone you're romantically involved with. So you could have a long distance romance. Or this could be, as the 5th house is also creativity, this could be traveling somewhere and feeling creatively inspired. Or work, there can be a connection between higher study and what you love to do. So maybe getting some sort of education pertaining to a hobby. With Jupiter going through the 9th house, this is a pretty important time for you when it comes to traveling. And when I say important, it's that the knowledge that you get from it, the experience, the wisdom that you can get from it can be very life-shaping, especially because we do have an eclipse ruled by Jupiter. So you may be traveling this month, and as I say, you could be traveling because of a love interest, or you could be traveling because of your children, or you could be traveling and it is linked to creative inspiration. So there's different ways that this can manifest, Scorpio, but this lunar eclipse has an element of harmony attached to it. And especially if you have placements that, 14, 15, 16 degrees of Scorpio, you could really find yourself benefiting tremendously from this eclipse because it is forming a grand trine. So look back about 6 months of the 27th of February, what was going on for you at this time. There could have been a new beginning that is maybe being birthed at this point for you, Scorpio, but it can certainly be, with the North Node going through the 5th house, eclipses in the 5th house, there can be events taking center stage with your children. So that can be, your grown children, your adult children are starting a family of their own, or they're getting married, or they're going through something important in their life, life-changing events are happening with them. Or it can be that for those of you that are not parents, you could be becoming a parent for the first time, or you could be becoming pregnant. It can also be that, as I say, for singles, this can be a time of great romantic activity. So romance can come under this lunar eclipse. And I would say if it does, Scorpio, you might meet this person through university or college or higher study, or they could be a teacher, or you might meet them traveling. With Saturn re-entering this sector, this is about revisiting your commitments and responsibilities to your children if you have them. And this can also be revisiting your commitments to the things that make you happy. You know, if you're committed to an artistic project, an artistic talent, Saturn going through the fifth is actually a great time to really finesse a talent of yours. But sometimes it can feel a little bit limiting at the same time. Sometimes it can feel a bit restricting when it comes to being creative and being artistic. And this is because there are moments of inspiration, but it also requires discipline. You know, inspiration will find you working. And so with Saturn going through this sector again for you, Scorpio, you might find that you are being rewarded for the hard work that you've put in that hasn't been rewarded yet, or you feel like you're finally finessing a talent of yours. And this can also be a time when you're recommitting to what it is that matters to you when it comes to love or finding love, you know, your values. We also have this partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo, and this one for you, Scorpio, is happening in your 11th house. Now it's in the final degree of Virgo, and we had a new moon there back at the end of August within the first degree of Virgo. So there can be some new energy coming to your 11th house of friendships. So this can bring important matters up with your friendships. Friendships can be more pivotal in your life journey at the moment. You know, they can help you find what you need. They can redirect you. Whether, you know, how it manifests is so different with eclipses. This can be that if a friendship leaves your life for some reason, that roots you in a different direction, or it can be that a friendship comes back into your life or takes more of a center role in your life to help you get to where you're meant to go. Sometimes that can be more subtle than others, but it can certainly bring in new friendships, and it can also bring in reconnection with old friendships because of the South Node as well. For some of you, this can bring about the membership of a new team, collaborations with a group of people, working with a group of people, becoming part of a group of people. And for you, Scorpio, this could be a group of people that maybe you're working on something behind the scenes. You're working with them privately, or it's a very secretive group or a very selective group that you're getting involved in. Or it could be, as I say, that, you know, maybe you're ending a friendship or a connection to a group of people, or there's significant changes within the teams that you're a part of, Scorpio. These changes will take shape over the next 6 months, so you could very well find yourself getting involved with a club or a membership or a group or something of that nature. One thing that I really like for you, Scorpio, is that Mars, your ruling planet, is entering your sign in domicile. This can give you a real surge of energy, especially because Saturn is now out of your 6th house, as Saturn has re-entered Pisces. And this is obviously if you follow the whole sign system, as I do for horoscopes. But with Mars being in your sign and Saturn out of your 6th house, you may feel like you have more energy than you've had in a while. You might feel more driven, more determined, more empowered. You might feel empowered to make personal changes. You might feel more active in your life. You might feel more magnetic. You might feel as though you are attracting more attention. You might also feel a bit more passionate as well with Mars going through your sign from the 22nd. Uranus is going to go retrograde in your 8th house from the 6th of September. Uranus has only got to 1 degree of Gemini. And for you, this is about rethinking the changes and the revolutions and the rebellions that you're experiencing in your 8th house. So if there's been some financial changes to your partner's money or the sources that you get money from, this is the time to reflect on those changes. Some of them are positive and welcome unexpected developments when it comes to money that comes to you from other people. Maybe some of them for you have been quite jarring and quite frustrating, and you've maybe been trying to break free from some limitations or the old way of doing things when it comes to your financial resources. There could have been some shocks and surprises. Uranus is now retrograde to give you a chance to reflect on those and to reflect on what it is that you want to do going forward with financial matters, especially if it's pertaining to homes and property and investments. Uranus retrograde can be a time when it's a little less shocking and surprising, and it gives you a chance to sort of figure out how to make the most of these changes or what changes you really want to make going forward. That's what I have for you, Scorpio, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your horoscope for September 2025. I hope you're all doing really well. So Sagittarius, you're one of the mutable signs, and you, along with Virgo, Pisces and Gemini, are experiencing quite profound changes in September. So these can manifest in different ways for different people, but to give you the summary of it, we have a total lunar eclipse in your 4th house, and this is happening on the 7th of September. We also have Saturn returning to this sector. So there's a spotlight on your family, Sagittarius. There's a spotlight on your home, your living situation, property matters, home matters, family matters, etc. Now, this lunar eclipse is going to be a total lunar eclipse, meaning there can be some quite significant changes to your family status. So this could coincide for some of you with a move. This can also coincide for some of you with the property purchases, or a property purchase, or the selling of a property. Jupiter, the dispositor of this lunar eclipse and also your chart ruler, is in the 8th house. And for you, that is to do with other people's money, financial resources that you pull in from other people or sources. And that can include mortgages, it can include loans, it can include debt, it can include your partner's money. So it feels like for a lot of you Sagittarians, there can be a significant move or property matters that pertain to big money. So that can be that you need a mortgage for a house that comes through, now you're moving. That can be that your partner's job is changing, so their resources are changing, so you're moving, or you're remodeling, or you're changing the home in some way. I feel for most of you this one's quite positive though. Although I will say with Saturn returning to this sector, this is where you are revisiting significant commitments to home and family. This can be where you are finding yourself in this very dedicated role to your home and family, and the weight of responsibilities is very much at the forefront of your mind. But similarly, if you've been putting in work and investment into a home, a property, or into your family, you can, with this eclipse and with Saturn re-entering this part of your chart, you can see the payout from it. You can see the work paying off. And there could be a significant change happening with your home and your family. And sometimes that can be, things that are going on with family members. Or sometimes it can be in addition to the family as well with that lunar eclipse. But significant changes when it comes to home, family, and obviously for different charts, there's a multitude of ways that can play out. But essentially, Sagittarius, over the next 6 months, it feels like for a lot of you, if there hasn't been already, significant changes in terms of where you're living, who you're living with, and what's going on within your family unit. Now, we also have a partial solar eclipse in Virgo, and this is your public image. And we had 2 new moons here. The first one was on the 23rd of August, and the second one is on the 21st of September, and that is the partial solar eclipse. So new beginnings are afoot when it comes to your career, or when it comes to what you're known for, your titles. And this is also your purpose. Now, I've been trying to explain it to different zodiac signs that have significant 10th house transits this month. Your purpose and your career are not always aligned. Sometimes for people they are, sometimes for others they're not. Whatever your purpose is in this life, you might find a new purpose coming onto your horizon that's very meaningful for you over the next 6 months, Sagittarius. And it may be something that you're connecting with groups of people to do. You're collaborating with teams, you're involved in a charity, you're involved with a group of people where you are working together, you have ideas together, you're working towards the same goal. And for a lot of you, this might be something that actually takes you out of the home quite a bit, or you're trying to find that home work balance. That's going to be quite a key pivotal point for you. But it feels for a lot of you Sagittarius like there could be this new goal, or maybe for some of you it's a new career, or maybe for some of you it's a new title, like it's doctor, or say you get married, your title changes, what you're known for, how you're known publicly changes for a lot of you. And this could be something that you're getting as part of a group, as part of a team, or something that is quite public for a lot of Sagittarius risings in particular. I do think for many of you this could be a new job, and if it is a new job, it's linking you to very important people. It's linking you to teams, to friends even. You might make friends through this new professional path that you're going down, or this could be for some of you, sometimes solar eclipses can be about retirement, or they can be about promotion, or they can be about self-employment. But it's not a lonely route you're going down by any means, Sagittarius. It seems to be that you're having to connect with other people to do this thing. Now, there is a bit of 12th house energy coming in for you later in the month with Mars entering Scorpio. Now, Mars loves being in Scorpio, it's domicile here. But for you, it's the 12th house, and this is where you might see your energy run a little lower. This is where you might be wanting to catch up on some sleep, have some more rest, take more time to yourself, take more time to recharge. It might have been a particularly busy period, and then when Mars enters this sector, you can find yourself, Sagittarius, having more fun doing things alone, having more fun doing things at home, in solitude, resting, recuperating, and sort of just taking some time off or taking some downtime. When Mars goes through the 12th house, it can also be a time where you sort of notice that maybe a few vices are coming to the fore, or you're working to let go of something that is sabotaging you, or maybe even letting go of people that you realize are sabotaging you. Mars going through the 12th house can be a time when you realize what you need to cut out of your life, or who, in order to thrive, in order to do better. Now, when Mars is going through this sector, Sagittarius, you tend to find that you are more you feel more empowered to make those changes or make those cuts. Now, one of the significant things happening for you this month as well is that Uranus is going retrograde on the 6th of September in your sector of partnerships, marriage, spouse, relationships, business partnerships. If there's been significant changes happening in this sector for you, Sagittarius, this is a time to reflect on those changes. Uranus going into a backspin is when you reflect on the changes when it comes to your relationships, your partner, your spouse, the changes that have been occurring there. If there's been a breakup, if there's been a separation, if there's been an acceleration in your relationship or your relationship life, you're sort of reflecting on these, and you're considering whether or not you're maybe being rebellious for destructive reasons, or you are actually looking for change that feels a bit more authentic to what you want in your relationships. You know, Uranus going through the 7th house, sometimes people find that they're attracted to unusual partners. It can be a breakup transit. It can also be, you know, finding someone and accelerating at a very quick speed, or being drawn to someone that's a bit unusual to your usual type, or you and your partner deciding that you want to get married in a way that's a little bit different, or a bit quirky, or a bit out of the norm, or you want your living situation with your partnerships to be a bit different. This is about assessing whether or not you're coming at it from a place of, as I say, rebellious for rebellious sake, or you're actually just changing and you want different things, and the things that you want don't always match what is expected of you, and that's okay. So that is what I have for you, Sagittarius. I will talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to your horoscope for September 2025. I hope you're all doing really well. So Capricorn, a few different things happening this month for you. For all of us, it is eclipse season, and eclipse season is a rather significant time. For you personally, these ones are quite harmonious with your Capricorn placements. So the total lunar eclipse in Pisces, it's happening on the 7th of September. This is going to be, for you Capricorn, happening in your 3rd house. Now Saturn, your ruling planet, is also returning to that sector from the 1st. So this sector that is lit up for you surrounds your siblings, surrounds your neighbours. It also surrounds your aunts and uncles and cousins. It can also bring up matters pertaining to the car, to transport, and to short courses and learning and teaching. So it's quite a versatile house that this eclipse is happening in for you. With Saturn returning to this sector, if you have been committing to learning something, studying something, teaching something, or there has been some testing events when it comes to siblings, when it comes to neighbours, there is a need to revisit some of these, but this can also be a time where you're recommitting, you're restructuring this area of your life. And you maybe had some hard knocks and hard lessons, but you're also finding that you're setting better boundaries, you're setting better limitations for yourself in these areas also, and you can actually be rewarded for the hard work that you've been doing here. So if you Capricorn have been maybe committed to studying for something, or writing a book, or writing a large piece of, because the third house is communication, you've had commitment to communication of some kind, you could notice the benefit really pay off. Maybe you've been setting better boundaries when it comes to communication, or learning how to be a more effective communicator. This lunar eclipse brings all of these matters to the forefront. So you might notice that there's something going on with a sibling in your life. This full moon is in the third house, so something could be changing in their life, or a cousin or a neighbor. There could be movement in these places. So maybe a neighbor of yours is moving. It's interesting though that this eclipse is ruled by Jupiter in your seventh house of relationships. So maybe a sibling is getting married, or a sibling is having significant events happening in their relationship life, or your relationship to them is highlighted at this point. It can also be that if you have a neighbor, maybe they're moving away because they're getting married, or someone's moving in, or something of that nature too. Though it can just be bringing up and emphasizing the importance of your relationships to these people. There can also be significant news of yours, or significant conversations and communications when it comes to a partnership, a relationship in your life, Capricorn. This could also be that you get a new neighbor and you realize that they're the love of your life, or something like that, with that third house, seventh house communication, or a deeper relationship begins with a neighbor. It doesn't have to be romantic though. It could just be that maybe your bond is getting closer, or your bond is changing as well with any of these people. Eclipses are wild cards, but this is certainly highlighting the themes of communication and connection to these people that I've mentioned. So for a lot of you Capricorn, this could be when you're finishing a book, or you're finishing something with a social media project, or you're finishing studying for something, or you are perhaps changing your car as well. Eclipses in this the third house can also be associated with car changes, transport changes, or even taking a short trip. Some of you could absolutely, Capricorn, be traveling in September, or planning your travels, especially if it's with a partner, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, a business partnership even, or one other person. You could be traveling with them. We have a solar eclipse in Virgo, your ninth house, on the 21st of September. So you might be taking a trip this month, Capricorn. And if you are, it feels like you could be taking a trip to somewhere that maybe you've been before. Maybe you've been to the place before, or you've been in a past life, or it feels familiar, it feels somewhat nostalgic, and maybe the people that you meet there are quite important in your destiny. That solar eclipse is ruled by Mercury in Libra for you, which is your 10th house of career. So I feel like for a lot of you, maybe you're traveling for work, or maybe you're traveling maybe going on your travels helps you get clarity about your work situation, or your career, or a goal of some kind. Maybe you're traveling somewhere to complete a goal, even if that's just ticking it off your bucket list. Maybe some of you are finding that with this solar eclipse in the ninth house, you're beginning a course of study, higher education, going to university, college, studying for degrees, studying for certification, studying for exams. Maybe some of you are doing exams, and this will help you improve your career position, as it is ruled by Mercury in the 10th house. It will help you enhance your career, your knowledge for your career. This could be something that you're doing through your job as well. Or you could just be setting the goal to travel more. Maybe you're having itchy feet and you really want to take more vacations, or have more experiences abroad. Your beliefs around your work and your purpose could also be changing this month, Capricorn. Now there's Uranus going retrograde in your sector of day-to-day work and routines and your health. So if you've been experiencing any if you've been experiencing a need to rebel, to revolutionize how you take care of your health, your wellness, the exercises that you do, the workouts that you do, or how you do your job, or how you structure your routines, you're starting to reflect on these changes, how they're going. And sometimes with Uranus energy, we can get a bit rebellious, or we can get a bit angsty, and we want to shake things up for the sake of shaking things up. But with the Uranus retrograde, you can sort of reflect on whether or not these changes are coming from a place of true authenticity. With Uranus, it's the kind of authenticity that when you say you want to do something, but you know that other people will sort of give you a bit of side eye for it, or raise an eyebrow, but you feel like it's true to you. That's what the Uranian authenticity is. doing what feels right to you, even if it's sort of against the norm. And Uranus energy can also be where you rebel just to shock people, but it's not actually helping you at all. And you're deciding which is which. But I think for most of you, you're very professional people. And I think this may be where there's some unexpected twists and turns in your job, or in your with your health even, or with your routine, and you're embracing whether or not these changes can work for you. You're embracing the changes that do work for you, and you're reflecting on what's not. You know, what sort of changes are nope, lost my train of thought. But it's essentially Capricorn, the Uranus transit through the sixth house is where you start to shake up the things that matter to you health wise and do things a little bit differently. So that can be following an unusual diet, getting into an unusual exercise, just revolutionizing your routine so it's not typical. You know, you could find yourself wanting to move away from the typical routine of 9 to 5, you know, revolutionizing your schedule. And Uranus retrograde helps you reflect on what it is that you'd like to change or what you've changed thus far. It sort of turns the energy inward, where you notice that the changes aren't really happening to you. They've either happened to you or you're considering what ones you'd like to make. Mars is going into Scorpio on the 22nd, which I like for you because Mars is in your 10th house until then. And while this can make you more driven and more action orientated, Mars isn't so comfortable in Libra, which means that you may have found there's been some frustrations at your job or some tension at your job. And Mars going into Scorpio means that you feel really driven and empowered to go after your visions, maybe to create a vision board, to check in with your vision board. And if it's not a vision board at all, it can just be that you're feeling more driven to achieve your dreams and desires, and maybe feeling a bit more empowered to, you know, because Scorpio is quite it's a sign that likes transformation and alchemy, so making the changes that you need to bring these things to manifestation. Sometimes Mars going through the 11th can bring a bit of tension with friendships and groups and teams of people. You could notice that there's just maybe a moment here and there where there's tension within a group or within a team. You could notice maybe they're fighting with each other more, there's a bit more conflict there. But for the most part, you can really feel like you need to move towards your goals, possibly silently, Capricorn. Moving in silence is a good motivation. It's a good motivational perspective for Mars and Scorpio as a transit. You know, it's a very secretive sign. It makes actions very secretive. So if you are working on a group project, you might be tempted to keep some things to yourself just for now. That's what I have for you, Capricorn, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to your horoscope for September 2025. So Aquarius, let's start with your Pisces house. It's your second house, which is your money. How you make your money and what you spend your money on. Now we have Saturn returning to that sector, so you feel the weight of responsibility, being more serious about your money, about your finances, how you make money, what you spend money on. Saturn going through the second oftentimes kind of brings with it this need to cut out excess. It's like, I don't want to spend my money on this, that, or whatever. You're more focused on maybe quality rather than quantity when it comes to what you're spending your money on, and you want to spend your money on things that have meaning to you, and you're probably not as frivolous. And if you are, Saturn can sometimes make that a bit of a problem for you. So with Saturn returning to the sector, you might be rewarded for the hard work that you've put into something. So that could have been a budget or savings goal. You might find in September there's some sort of reward coming for you financially if you've been putting in the hard work and being more serious and responsible with your finances. Now that total lunar eclipse is coming up on the 7th of September, and bear in mind the eclipse effects can take up to 6 months to manifest, but for you Aquarius, this could be where you're either being paid for something or you're spending money on something, and it's linked to sixth house activities. So for a lot of you with this lunar eclipse, if you're spending money on something, maybe spending a substantial amount of money on something, it could be to do with your health. It could be to do with your work. It could be to do with your wellness routines. It could also be to do with pets, with the sixth house being in play, Jupiter going through the sixth house. Maybe you're wanting to expand your pet family, or maybe you are expanding the roles that you provide, the services that you provide in your work. And this is maybe bringing you in more money. You know, you might have a new role or a service that you're providing that does make you more money with Jupiter going through the sixth house. With lunar eclipses and just eclipses in general in the second house, opportunities can come in quite serendipitously to make more money, to enhance your financial situation. And for you, Aquarius, this could be linked to maybe physical activity, sports that you're competing in, wellness routines, health matters, or it could also be that it's just, as I say, the services and the work that you're providing and that you do on a daily basis. This can all be shifting for you, Aquarius, and money could either be coming in significantly or going out significantly because of what you're spending on. If you think back to the 27th of February, there was a new moon there. So maybe if you had an intention surrounding your finances, it is manifesting or coming full circle in September. Now, there is also a partial solar eclipse coming up on the 21st of September, and this is happening in your sector of other people's money. And it is going to be ruled by Mercury in your ninth house, Aquarius. So, for a lot of you with this solar eclipse, there could be a new chapter coming up for you when it comes to money that you receive through other people. So, that could be the government, that can be mortgage arrangements, tax arrangements, debt as well, loans. It can also be your spouse or your partner's money if you're financially connected. And this can be a new chapter. Potentially, this is a new chapter that changes things legally with Mercury being in the ninth house. So, if there's something changing with your partner's money, this could be to do with legal arrangements. This can also be to do with travel, to do with visas, because of Mercury being in that ninth house. Or it could be that you're receiving money for university, for travel, for higher education, for study, or something of that nature, Aquarius. But this could be a new beginning happening for you in terms of your finances. So maybe you're committing to paying off a debt that you have from university, or maybe this is that your partner's money is changing and this is going to impact you legally in some way, shape, or form. You know, this could be to do with a legal arrangement or documents, contracts, passports, visas, that type of thing can come up linked to your joint financial arrangements, Aquarius. Now, Uranus is going retrograde in your fifth house from the 6th of September. And Uranus retrograde, it revolutionizes the way that you see love. So this could be that you're drawn to dating different types of people. This can be that you have experienced some ups and downs in your love life. This can also have been a transit of unexpected pregnancies or some unexpected energy pertaining to your children. And if you've been looking to shake things up in this area of life, maybe you've been feeling more creatively inspired to take risks, or there's just been these unusual occurrences going on with your children or your love life or what you consider to be fun, this is sort of the time where Uranus brings the energy inward and you reflect on how these changes fit for you. You know, because you are ruled by Uranus in modern astrology. So you're reflecting on how these changes and these shifts, whether they are unusual or just unexpected, how they are fitting with you and what you need to change, or what it is that you'd like to change going forward, or what it is that you maybe are realizing is shaky because you're feeling shaky. That can be one way that this comes up as well, but really it's about reflecting and reconsidering the changes that you're making in this area, or the changes that are happening to you in this area, because it's your ruler as well. I think it's kind of bringing your energy inward in terms of what makes you happy. You're maybe a bit more reflective on that, reflective on what brings you joy, what makes you feel love, what makes you feel happiness. Mars is entering Scorpio on the 22nd, and this is bringing a real sense of determination to your career or to a big time goal of yours, Aquarius. So Mars is in domicile here. You might find that you're feeling really driven to make big moves or big changes when it comes to your career matters or when it comes to your goal. Now, your boss could also irritate you a little bit more with Mars going through the 10th. You could find that you're having some power struggles in your career. But for the most part, I feel like Aquarius, you might be making some moves in silence. You might be sort of thinking to yourself, I feel like I could do this now. I feel like I'm empowered to make these changes. You're getting clear on what your goals are. And whether you're making them in secret or not, and I feel like for a lot of you, you probably are, you're feeling empowered to make these changes, and you're feeling quite a lot of strength behind the changes that you're making. Now, obviously with Mars going through the 10th house, it can be a time when you experience a little bit of backlash, I suppose, when it comes to your career and your public image as well, but you certainly seem to be making some big silent moves from the 22nd when it comes to your career or your goals, Aquarius. That is what I have for you, and I will talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to your September forecast. I hope you're all doing really well. So Pisces, this is a huge month for you because you're one of the key players in the astrology of September 2025. Now, why is that? Well, the main reason is that there is a total lunar eclipse happening in your sign on the 7th of September. And you'll be feeling the effects of this for most of the month. Now, a total lunar eclipse in your sign is incredibly significant, and it's more so significant to you if you have factors from 10 to 20 degrees of Pisces for this eclipse. But if you don't, it doesn't mean that you won't feel this because it's happening in your first house if you're a Pisces rising. So, this eclipse is highlighting you, it's highlighting how you look, and it's highlighting how you act. It's also highlighting how you feel about yourself. So this is your identity, Pisces, that may very well be changing quite significantly in September. Now, your traditional ruler Jupiter is currently in Cancer, meaning that it is in the sign of its exaltation, which means, especially because Jupiter is in a harmonious aspect to this lunar eclipse, it means for the most part these changes are very likely to be positive. So for some of you, this is a glow up. This is making really positive enhancements to your appearance, getting the right haircut, the right clothing, the right shoes, the right hair, the right makeup. Positive changes to your body, most likely. This could really be a time where you're in the spotlight and people are very receptive to how you look in a positive way. This can also be a time when you maybe feel like you've moved through something. You maybe feel more positive about life in general. And the 5th house is about pregnancy and birth. So for some of you, this is a very strong indicator of a pregnancy or a birth. So that's obviously for those who are in that stage of life or are in that relationship or whatever the case may be. For some of you, this can also be because the 5th house is about love. This can be about how you change through falling in love. You know the way sometimes when you see someone who's really falling in love and they're very happy, it shows on their appearance. This could be something that's happening for you. This could absolutely be a time when you fall in love. This could be a time when you get pregnant. This could be a time when you give birth. Or this could be a time where you are actually birthing something creative, Pisces, something that you really feel passionate about, something that's making you happy. There could be something or someone entering your life in September that makes you happy. And that shows on you. You know, it's all over your face with this lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is also ruled by your modern ruler Neptune in your 2nd house. So this can be changes in your confidence and your self-esteem, changes in your money that you are wearing on your appearance, that you're wearing on your human avatar. That can be something happening as well. Obviously, this is a time to go with the flow. It's in your sign, but it really feels like for a lot of you, it could be a glow up, some changes to your aesthetic, your personality. For some of you, your body is changing because you are growing a baby or you're giving birth to a baby. And for some of you, you could very well be falling in love. Like, going in that direction, we also have a partial solar eclipse in your 7th house of relationships. So this is about committed relationships. This is the spouse, the marriage partner. It's also the business partners, and it is close one-on-one relationships. So we've had a new moon in this sector on the 23rd of August, and now we're having the eclipse, the solar eclipse. So there's very much this new beginning happening in your partnership sector, Pisces. So that can be a new romantic relationship. It can be a new intimate relationship. The ruler of this eclipse is Mercury in the 8th house of intimate, close partnerships. So this can be that there's a new beginning in a current relationship, and this is bringing an intimacy, a closeness with someone, or it can also be that you're joining your finances together. With the 8th house, you're getting property together, you're merging in some way, shape, or form. You're beginning a partnership or a relationship where you gain something from it that isn't just that person. So you gain property, you gain another, joint financial arrangements, or whatever the case may be, and that can extend to business partnerships. You're going into business with someone financially and you're merging. This can certainly bring in a new fated relationship if you are looking for one. And this can also bring in a new business partnership if you're looking for one as well. One key day for you when it comes to your relationships, a significant conversation or a significant communication is the 13th of September when the Sun and Mercury form this superior conjunction in your 7th house of relationships. It's a very important day for communication with somebody. You might even meet somebody that day if you're looking. With Saturn re-entering your sign though on the 1st of September, if you've been putting in a lot of work when it comes to yourself, where you've been more disciplined, where you've been more serious, you may feel a little bit like, oh, I was kind of enjoying the summer with Saturn out of my sign and feeling so heavy and responsible and whatnot and all this hard work. With Saturn re-entering your sign, this is probably when you're going to get the reward for the hard work. So you're going to see it show up on yourself physically if you've been putting effort into your physical appearance, or if you've been very disciplined with yourself in your life, you're going to see the reward for the hard work that you've been doing and the maturity that you've been choosing, Pisces. Mars is entering Scorpio on the 22nd, and this can be a really nice time from the 22nd onward to travel because Mars is in domicile here. Now, I caveat that by saying Mars is still considered a malefic in astrology, which means that, if you do travel, you can find yourself frustrated with the airline, or you can find yourself, getting a more temperamental air steward or something like that. Someone who maybe feels Martian in energy. They're very quick and they're very direct, but it can also sometimes be someone who's a bit fiery. So you can sort of run into people traveling or at university or at college, or your teachers who rub you up the wrong way sometimes. But at the same time, you can also experience this dynamic energy where you feel empowered to make changes to how you travel, where you're traveling to, how much you travel, and that type of thing. Mars is, as I say, in domicile in Scorpio, meaning it's strong. So this is bringing a strength to your travel sector, even if it can be a bit passionate at times, Pisces. Uranus is going to go retrograde on the 6th of September in Gemini, which is your 4th house of home and family. So Uranus, when it changes motion, can sometimes bring a bit of a surprise. So maybe for some of you it's a surprise pregnancy with that eclipse. But it can also be that there are, if you've been thinking about how you want to revolutionize your living situation, if you want to do something different with your home, with your property, if it's felt like something that you're wanting to change, you want a little bit more freedom, or you want to do it your way, you're getting an opportunity to reflect on the changes you've made thus far and sort of reconsider if you're just rebelling for the sake of rebelling, or if there's authenticity in it, if the arrangement really suits you or not. When it comes to home and family, if things are quite unpredictable there, it can slow it down as well. Things might not feel as erratic. But that's what I have for you, Pisces. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon.